Are gamers unable to access games or are games inaccessible? Is that the same thing? What's the difference? Welcome to Gaining Advantage. Welcome to Gaining Advantage. We are using role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons to help you make lives better. Today, as this launches on December 3rd, 2021, is the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, or maybe you'd rather call it the International Day of Disabled People, depending whether you prefer person first or identity first language. Regardless, a lot of what we can recognize today is that the struggles that people have are not so much because of what their body does or doesn't do, or their mind, or anything like that, but rather what society does or doesn't do. The things that just make people's lives difficult because of the way they're treated, because of very easy accommodations, oftentimes that can be done that are not done. And just because it's as if these people don't even exist. And we don't even consider that, oh, maybe if we just went out of our way a little bit, that would just make the world better for everyone. And we're going to talk about that in our interview today. But before we get to that, just want to let you know, if you haven't heard about it already, or just to remind you, our big project, Limitless Heroics, including characters with disabilities, mental illness, and neurodivergence in 5th edition, is going to launch live on Kickstarter on January 4th, 2022. This coming January, right after all the holidays and everything is done, you set that aside and you get to jump into our Kickstarter with us. All right, Limitless Heroics is going to include D&D 5th edition game mechanics for over 450 symptoms, over 90 new assistive magic items, real world examples of each so the players can learn more and better represent the symptoms, opening articles discussing how and why to implement these options, how to discuss it with your players, and common tropes to avoid. All the tools that you need to run an inclusive campaign. And people have asked, 450 symptoms, what does that mean? Or like, how does that work? And so I've had a lot of conversations just this week with people who've been asking about that. And you see, oftentimes people will say, oh, well, okay, and not often because this hardly ever happens, all right? But people are looking for, okay, what is, how would you represent ADHD in D&D? All right. Well, there's the whole attention deficit thing. All right. But depending who you are and how that manifests, it's different for some people. It's we may say more severe than others, and then you have all kinds of other. There's emotional factors. There's physical factors. There's all kinds of other symptoms that may or may not tie in depending on what your experience is. All right. And so just because you have two different people with the same exact diagnosis doesn't mean that their symptoms are the same or to the same degree. And so Limitless Heroics was designed with that in mind. Just as people say autism is a spectrum, so literally every disability, every neurodivergence, every mental illness is a spectrum, and can have different combinations of symptoms, whereas some are more pronounced than others, even in the same person. It's not like, there's no such thing as severe autism, right? It's just that doesn't, if you understand autism as a collection of different symptoms or experiences, then you recognize that some of those may be more distinct than others. And so that's how Limitless Heroics was designed. So with that in mind, so that you can very accurately represent either an individual's your own, or someone that you know and care about, their experiences, and work with them to develop that so that you can understand them better. Or it could be that you just kind of putting together a random character, and just because you just want a more kind of general, you want to learn and you don't know where to start, and so roll randomly and start there, right? And so you have those different options, and So really want to encourage you to check that out, to spread the word and get more information. You can jump over to inclusiverpg.com, and all the information is there. And there will be more information there in over time. So keep checking back, or even better, just jump on our newsletter, sign up for that. And as we have more information out, we will let you know. And so the book is going to use a dyslexia and screen reader friendly format, plus an indexed audio version for the visually impaired, free random generators to quickly generate character symptoms and more assistive magic items. We've consulted with dozens of people with disabilities, neurodiversity, and mental illness, and we have hired a 100% disabled, neurodiverse, and mentally ill creation team, or those directly involved in treatment. And so our stretch goals, we have NPCs, including an NPC artist option who is a veteran in Marvel and DC Comics, who was heavily involved in the artwork in D&D third and 3.5 edition. And he's jumping in, and we're going to have some options to have him illustrate your character. We're going to have service animals and just a whole bunch of other really great things that we wanted to include in the first place. All right. But because we want to fairly pay our, our staff, uh, we need the money to do that. And all this stuff is expensive by the time you pay artists, writers, editors, sensitivity readers. It adds up really quickly, and they deserve to be paid fairly. And so we're using these stretch goals so that they can not only create more things that we can pay them more for, but to just to make a better product overall. And so we hope that you'll jump in and really support that. So to make sure you don't miss it, just go over to inclusiverpg.com, sign up for our newsletter. Just the instant you sign up, you get 75 free 4K battle maps. You get a unique wizard class. You get VIP early access to the Kickstarter, and you get weekly extras that we are putting out there. Some of them are excerpts from the book, and to give you previews of what's to come. Other things are brand new and exclusive to uh, to our newsletter subscribers and patrons. And so you want to check that out and not miss any of those. We've already had a bunch, and some of them you'll find in other places, and some you won't. And so if you don't want to miss any, inclusiverpg.com, and jump on and grab that newsletter. And so now with that said, let's get to our interview. How can you integrate disabilities better into gaming, both in-game and for disabled players? Today, we welcome author, advocate, consultant, and designer Jesse McNamee to give us some answers. Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, so what would you like us to know about you personally, specifically speaking to the tabletop role-playing game crowd?
Yeah, so as far as like the scale of tabletop RPG crowd goes, I'm a relatively newcomer. I've been doing this I've been playing tabletop RPGs for about 6-ish years. Um, and I only really dove hard into game designing for making content at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. Um, in doing that, a lot of what I wanted to do was kind of provide a voice that I was not seeing a whole lot of in the D&D space, um, which was just having disabled people exist, um, and and the scale of disability that is represented, like um, different types of physical disabilities, neurodiversity, that kind of thing. And so I just kind of wanted to throw my hat in the ring a little bit. I'm a game designer by trade. I work in video games. Um, so that's what I went to school for, and that's what I really enjoy doing. So I just kind of wanted to participate in this awesome community, and I've been got nothing but positive positive voices back. So.
Awesome. That's great. So, what obstacles have you encountered as a disabled player, and how have you managed them?
So, with my physical disability, it is a musculoskeletal condition that uh, doesn't greatly hinder my ability to um, do the things that are required in a tabletop RPG. I'm very fortunate in that way. In that, like the things that a lot of people have to get all of the barriers that people run into, um, I didn't, especially because I started on Roll20, which I think is a great accessibility tool. I think, and not just Roll20, but just general online gameplay. Um, but the biggest problem and hurdle that I had was representation. In no D&D game really was there any people with disabilities in a whole lot of the art and a whole lot of the descriptions and a whole lot of NPC stat blocks. Um, the only one I can think of offhand um, was, I believe, Esmeralda, one of the characters from Curse of Strahd. And until recently, that wasn't even a positive reinforcement of disability representation. Luckily, Wizards has changed that, which is much more positive. But um, that the biggest hurdle I had was not seeing myself in the game.
Okay. So tell us about your work as an advocate and consultant. What changes have you seen?
So since and this isn't a big part because of me, but just since I've been participating in this, I've seen a lot of growth in disability representation, advocacy, and accessibility in the tabletop RPG spaces, and frankly, in all gaming spaces. Um, there are a lot of fantastic creators out there making awesome um, disabled and accessibility related content, and so in my part of that, what I've done is I made a small module that acts as a little guideline to help, some players who have never had to interact with disabilities or don't know how to properly create a representative character in a respectful way. Um, and then I did a bit of advocacy on a couple of projects. The Bolt is an RPG system that was kickstarted a while back. They wanted to have disabled characters in their official art. Like they wanted from the ground up be like, no, disabled people are part of our RPG. Um, so I helped them with how that would look and how that would feel and how to do that in a way that felt like made them real characters. Um, the other big project I worked on was there is a role playing podcast called Does It Roll? They did a Star Trek RPG where they had a Star Trek captain who was in a wheelchair. Um, and we had a lot of great conversations about that, and the show ended up being like really well done, just because they wanted to have these conversations. Um, and that is uh, like the biggest things that I've had direct impact on.
Uh, how have you seen lives changed because of your work?
Um, I am pretty small scale. I don't have the largest following in the world, but I think just generally being a voice in the crowd and just generally um, being a perspective for people. In My day to day work is in video games, um, so that's most of what I interact with, and so just having a seat at the table to be like, these are uh, these are things that a disabled person would think about, just brings that perspective forward, which is why I push so hard for just not just disability representation in games, as in like NPCs, characters, and art, but also at tables. Just having that perspective is really good. And so I don't think I've changed lives. So I don't think, and I just think that being a voice, it creates a small impact, at least in your community, which is important.
In our previous episode, uh, one of the things we talked about is the ripple effect.
Hmm.
That and it's one person makes changes and another person makes changes and another person, and and it builds.
Hmm.
And so yeah, like each person, and you never know what impact you're specifically having, but it might be encouraging that next person who ends up having the big impact. And so every one of those voices, every one of those seats at the table, every one of those times of representation is just so valuable. So yeah, it really adds up. And I so often I've felt like with different things that that I was trying to do where I feel like I'm not making a difference or whatever, and maybe down the road someone comes along and says, hey, there was this thing that you did way back there, or whatever, something you said, or whatever that changed the way I look at things or something, and would have never known that. And there's other times where they never actually said anything.
Mhm.
So, it
Yeah.
really makes a difference for everyone.
Yeah, I think just putting the work in and putting your first foot forward, and doing things honestly, like what you do, I think is such a great way to do it, of elevating voices. I think is also really good. I think the best way to make an impact on the disabled community in this space is for us to pull each other up. I think a lot, and I think making sure that um, you are also supporting the other people in the field, and you know back the Kickstarters, fund the Patreons, do the um, do whatever little things you can, and I think it very much adds up that the community as a whole just gets better. Um,
Yeah,
and I've seen the community change lives, which I think is important. So, you know,
yeah,
change mine.
yep, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the other thing that I always like to talk about is, a D&D party is lots of different people. It's not just
Hmm.
one person. If it's just one person, you're doing it wrong.
Have you ever split the
And
party before? If it gets real dangerous.
it does. Man, I remember one time where I was DMing, and they're like, "Okay, I'm just gonna run in there. Well, I'm gonna stay back. So you're splitting the party? Yeah.
Hmm.
Are you sure?"
Yeah.
It did
I
not
love
go
those
well
"Are
for
you
them.
serious?" Those are the best.
Yeah.
And just the slow "Yes? No? Maybe?" Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
All right. So you just rescued a Jim and gives you 3 wishes to achieve your advocacy goal. What do you wish for?
First of all, I wanna say I love this question because my current character that I'm playing is a genie warlock that has an Afridi as a patron. So this was, like, a perfect timing. Um, but I think the 3 wishes, one would definitely be, um, creating a baseline understanding for non-disabled people on on the effort required for accessibility. Um, in my experience and in my mind, like with the people I've talked to, um, the misconception that accessibility is a difficult thing to do is a thing that stops some people from representing or bringing in disabled people. COVID's a great example of this. Work from home was a thing that was used to not hire disabled people because that's too difficult. And now that it is normalized, because everyone knows it can be done, that is a thing that would help. And I would want that across the board, of just like that it's not hard to include people, so just do that. The second wish would honestly just be money for all of the projects that disabled people want to do. There's so many great people. I've seen so many awesome projects that um, I'm like, these Kickstarters, these Patreons, they need to be given infinite money.
Mhm.
Um, so I would just go on and be like, I would just go to Patreon and click the disabled tag and it'd be like, everyone, you get all the money now. Um, and the third wish um, for advocacy would just be normalizing advocacy. I think the Dots RPG project is great because it allows people to find consultants and can find sensitivity readers and people like that. Um, that's getting more normal now, but I would just wish that that was a standard part of production on every single RPG project. It's like, you know, blocking out all ideas, editing, layout and production. At some point in that step, having consulting be part of that always would, I think, just greatly increase the amount of representation and effective accessibility in a lot of projects.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, it's just and you never just in the I mean, granted, the work that I'm doing right now is very focused on
Mhm,
specifically on disability. But even planning on other future projects, that is not their specific focus.
mhm,
I'm because I want to make sure to include it. Um, like, okay, I need to make sure that this is handled properly.
mhm,
And yeah, I know I've learned so much. And that's the other thing. It's not just doing it to make sure that you don't offend somebody, which is important because we need to
mhm,
care about other people's feelings. At the same time, man, you learn
mhm,
and because you haven't had someone else's experience,
mhm,
um and I have learned so much just in the months that I've been working on this project.
mhm.
um and it changes the way you see the world, and that is
Definitely, for sure.
invaluable.
Um, yeah, definitely. And the learning is so important. Like, always be learning, but that's just something that you should always be doing, especially in this field. There's so much.
Yeah. All right, so what one message would you like to give gamers who are disabled?
It's actually funny because it's great segue. My thing that I would tell disabled gamers and people who are disabled in this field would be, it's okay that you don't know. Um, my first several drafts of my arcane prosthesis had a ton of ableist language and things that I didn't realize I was thinking about incorrectly. Um, and I think I said on Twitter, I think it's a pinned tweet. This is a living document for me because it is a representation of my learning as I am going through this. And it is changing as I'm going. And um, I have been disabled all 29 years of my life, but my experience with disability is narrow, relatively speaking. Um, Therefore, like, I'm always learning. I'm always reaching out to people. I'm always asking questions and being honest about what I don't know. I've turned down consulting uh, requests because that was really important that they needed someone in a wheelchair to be represented, and that is not my experience. I can learn about that experience, and I would like to learn about it, and know about the challenges there. But it's okay not to know. And if a another disabled person tells you that their experience is different than yours, listen. It's important. Um, So that's something that I've struggled with as a disabled person in various disability communities is that um, I don't know everything, and that's okay. And just being willing to listen and to reach out to other consultants is super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's no matter who you are, one of the things that I like to emphasize is that we all have different experiences.
Mhm,
We, at the same time, we can empathize because the number of actual feelings, like emotions that you experience, there's kind of a limited set,
mhm,
right? But that's so because of that, when someone experiences something, we can we can say, I know that feeling of being marginalized, of,
mhm,
or whatever it is. Like,
mhm,
even if I haven't had the exact same feeling, so we can empathize with people at the same time, say, I don't know exactly what you're going through.
mhm.
And so, and the more we learn about what other people are going through, the more we can also empathize with them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know. Yeah, and it's okay to not know. Like,
Mhm.
totally respectable.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there have been different times in my life where I kind of went through, it was like a learning growth spurt,
Mhm.
where you learn a whole bunch of stuff and you go, "Oh,
Yes.
why didn't I know this before?" And you kinda beat yourself up about it. It's like,
Yeah.
but if you didn't know that you didn't know, then, so I like to say to to know something is to have learned it.
Mhm.
And so until you've learned it, you can't be expected to know it.
Yep. There's also
So
just, like, the bell curve of knowledge of you think you know something, then you actually learn more about it and realize you know nothing, and then you learn more about it, and then you think that you know nothing anymore.
yep,
Um, so, I don't know, I just try to keep an open mind about it and just be like, "It's okay to not know. Just
yep.
talk to people and listen."
All right. So that's probably a good transition to the next question. What one message would you like to give gamers who are not disabled?
Open seats. Open seats at tables. It is not hard. It is, the experiences that you will learn by just listening will, um, allow you to become a more whole designer if you're a designer in the space or if you're a DM, because it will make you, you know, recognize what you're taking for granted. Um, and that understanding, um, that accessibility is a benefit for everyone. There's the ever famous like curb cut problem
Hmm.
of like they made curb cut for wheelchair accessibility. And it turns out everyone loves them because they're just useful for everyone. And you can find that in your games. You can find that in your designs. You can find that in, uh, you know, the fact that the 5e Candlekeep dungeon is wheelchair accessible. That just helps everyone. That harms no one and helps everyone. So be open. And
Yeah, yeah. The
just
dwarven construction crew that had to haul all those heavy blocks really
yeah,
appreciates the ramps.
exactly. Who
It
wants
was
to
their
use
idea.
stairs? Like they're awful. No one wants to use stairs. Um, so I guess in the same vein, that is the same thing that I would say to disabled people, but I think from a different perspective. I think also listen, be open, and have a seat at the table because it turns out disabled people are people, and we're a lot of fun. Um, and you'll have a great time. I promise.
All right. So, what projects are you planning for the future?
Um, I actually have no strict projects lately. I through the year 2020, I made a magic item every day. Post a magic item every day. Um, and then the summer of 2021, I got a job and moved to Los Angeles. So I've been dealing with that. Um, that's kept keeping me busy. But at the beginning of 2022, especially, I really want to dive heavier into doing more work. I plan on doing a whole new draft of my Arcane Prosthesis project, based on things that I've learned this year, um, and just generally reaching out and collaborating on random projects, specifically on things like DM's Guild, um, and just being a disabled voice on those teams. Um, but yeah, I don't have anything specific at the moment.
All right. So, we will have all your contact information in our show notes, but where's the one best place you'd like people to start to learn more about you or to contact you?
Definitely my Twitter. If I when I make plans for any real projects or when I have updates on things that I have worked on, um, that is where you can find out. I keep that uh, relatively focused. So yeah, check out my Twitter at Jesse McNamee.
All right. Jesse, thanks so much for coming on the show. Everyone, check out the links in the show notes.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great talking to you.
So if you haven't signed up for our newsletter yet, go do that right now. 75 free 4K battle maps, free subclass, discounts, specials, exclusives, information about latest news, blog posts, Kickstarter updates, all that coming from inclusivepg.com. And it also gives you VIP early access with exclusive perks. And so you find all that, inclusivepg.com, jump on our newsletter. And I mentioned at the beginning our Patreon, and I just want to take a moment and thank those who have already jumped on our Patreon and supported us in a big way. And I really appreciate that. So Justin, Steve, Jason, and Riot, thank you so much. All right. And if you who are watching are not on our Patreon and you're interested, or you want to support what we're doing, and just seeing those people that have said, hey, I want to back this in big and small ways with an ongoing expression of support. All right. It makes such a huge difference, because you know what? When you're involved in a project like this, you get quite a bit of flack for it. There's plenty of people that say, I wouldn't use this and therefore it shouldn't exist. Right. And while on the one hand, you can think of that and say, well, that's just kind of ridiculous. All right. On the other hand, I care about what people think. I care about people. And I take that stuff personally. And when that happens, being able to look and see, well, here's these people that are literally backing this project with their money. Here's these people on the newsletter that say, I want to know more. I'm really interested in what's going on here. All right. That support is what keeps me going, what helps me remember, no, what we're doing here is important. And it's not just me doing it. This is what we are doing together. And so I want to encourage you, if you can, jump on our Patreon and help us out there. There's lots of really cool perks involved with that if you can. And otherwise, jump on our newsletter, and there's lots of not quite as many, but there's still a lot of really cool perks that you can get there. And boy, for the people that are involved in this project, it really means the world to all of us. And so if you find this helpful, another way that you can help, in addition to those other options, is if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. All right, that helps people see, people are really interested in this. Right? If you know people that need to hear this, regardless whether you're listening to the audio or watching it on YouTube, pass it on to them. Say, hey, I just saw this. You got to see this. Man, I see tweets all the time where I say, hey, you got to check out this episode, because I think this really speaks right into the way you're feeling right now, the way you're thinking right now. I think you'd really appreciate it. And so when you see that, you think about that, pass it on, let them know. And if you think, wow, man, everyone needs to hear this. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I finish an episode of this, when I finish these interviews, I always feel so good. I'm just like happy the rest of the night. And so if that's how you feel when you finish this, then man, put it out on social, because you know what? There's a lot of negative stuff out there, and we try to be pretty positive here. And it's nice to see some good that's going on in the world. And so pass it on, because you never know when someone needs a little positivity, because we all do. And so let's put it out there on your socials and let people know about it. And don't forget those podcast ratings. Another way to let the world know, hey, this is something worthwhile. And it raises it up so that more people will see it. And so now we close with this question: how do you make your game more accessible?